Hello? All right. I think I'm going. Yep, I am live. Let me just make sure I got my speaker set up correctly here. Yep. Everything looks good. And welcome to the Night Owl Writers Room with Rich Hosek. So, today I was out in Rockford, Illinois at the Haunted Rockford Paranormal Conference. And I went there because I've got a book series that is a paranormal mystery series. So I figured, hey, natural fit, right? They, have vendors there, they've got, people interested in the paranormal. Easy sales, right? Well, here's the thing about it, um, percentage-wise, in terms of the number of people who come to my table and bought books, pretty good, average to above average. People who came by, you know, a good percentage of them, not most, but a good percentage did buy a book. The problem is that there weren't many people there. Had to be less than 100. I don't know for sure because I wasn't in the main presentation area, but, judging from the people coming through, it was at I mean, we were the vendors were stuck in this tiny little room, and it was kinda strange because there were some it seemed like there were some vendors or people with information in the main room upstairs where they were doing the presentations, and then there was, like, a room full of people selling things. Most of them were selling, like, jewelry and crystals, and one guy was selling tarot cards and holy water. Another guy was, uh, selling books on the occult. I don't think he sold anything at all, to be honest. Another guy had, they were local ghost hunters. They were selling T-shirts and stuff like that. And another person just had some, just ghost themed merchandise and stuff like that. So I was the only bookseller there, which was good. And, people would come by and they would see me and go, "Oh, wow, books," and take a look. I think the signage worked out okay, but I didn't really have enough of a sample size to really know if my new approach to the signage worked. And plus, my table was so tiny that you really couldn't see any of my signage. Well, I couldn't put out all of my signage. I'll put it that way. So let me see if I can pull up this photo of what happened here. There we go. So this is the size of my table here. Let me show you guys. Right there. Yeah. So let me zoom in a little bit here. Okay, there we go. Now you can see it. So here's my paranormal stuff over here, near death and afterlife. This is the new signage I had made up. I put up the sign featuring my co-author Lloyd Auerbach. He is big into parapsychology world. A couple of people did know who he was, had knew him personally, and so that worked out well. And a few people saw that and go, "Oh, like okay, that's cute. Tell me more." Okay, so I think they worked. I may need to put some more information on there, but as you can see, it was hard because some of part of the sign is covered up and all this kind of stuff. And then over here, I had the "What would you do" signage for the Dead Kids Club that did garner some attention. I didn't sell any of those books though. I did have some people who were interested. A couple people came by, but nobody bought it. I did sell some of the mini books. That worked out well, and of course, I gave out a lot of the audiobooks as well. Um, uh, so, but yeah, there's just absolutely, this is I think of like I want to say it's like a 4.5 to 5 foot table. It's the smallest vendor table I've ever been at. I think before that I've shared like an 8 foot table when I only had 3 books. But this was the smallest vendor space I've had. Didn't have enough room to put up my backdrop. I didn't have enough room to put up my other stand-up signs or anything like that. So I basically made the best I could of the space. Laid out some bookmarks here. Here are the bookmarks with the playlist for the podcast and the mini books for the podcast. So in terms of presentation, people saw that and it was like, "Okay, this is interesting," and, I think the pricing worked out well. That's one thing I do think worked in my favor. So originally, I was selling books. Hang on a second. Originally, I was selling my books at $15 and then discounting them to $10 if they bought more than one. So first book was 15, second was 10, third was 10, and so forth, which is a great deal, a fabulous deal, but I wasn't making as much money. My friend Jody persuaded me to try raising the prices to $20, which we did at the Chicago Book Fair, the Printers Row thing, and that worked. I had people buy stuff. I was selling it for 20 for the first book and then 15 for the second book. This one, I priced my books at $20, but I said if you buy 2 or more, I'm gonna knock them down to $15. So anybody who bought at least 2 books got them both for $15. So that cost me $5 on a multiple book sale from what I was getting before, but that's okay because 'cause I'm still getting as much as I was getting when I originally started pricing them. So, I think that worked out well. The other part of it was that, um, yeah, the mini books, $5, that was a good price point for that. I was wondering about that. I mean, I look at those things and I would pay $2 for. I was hoping to sell them for $2 originally. I was kind of hoping that I could get those mini books printed by my own printer at a $1 price point. Not the case. Not the case at all. So it's twice as much. It cost me $2 each. I had to buy thousands of them. Thousands of them. I bought 2,100 books, mini books. I'm sorry, I bought 2,000 mini books. I meant to buy 2,100, but my printer missed an email. So instead of getting 2,100 of 15 books, I got 2,000 of 10 books. But that's okay. I plenty of room for that. And then so I've got that going there, and yeah, it's actually the price point worked out for me. Here's the other thing too. When you are selling books, some of the vendors were cash only. They said, I'm gonna give 3% to the credit card company," and I think they left sales on the table. I know I would have left sales on the table if I'd done that, right? I had one guy come up, was interested in the Paranormal series, and he said, "Oh, I think I'll take that one." And he's like, "Gonna pay me $20." I said, "You know, if you get the second one, it's only another $10. It's 2 for 30." And he's like looking at his wall. He goes, "I don't have $30." And I said, I do take credit cards." He said, "Oh, okay." And so I got that sale because I take credit cards. Now, yeah, you lose 3%. Okay, no biggie. 3% for the sale, or if you think about it, I would have sold one book for $20. Good deal. But this time I got $30, so I more than made up for that credit card surcharge in volume. So, uh, that's helpful, right? If people are on the edge, it's like, okay, yeah, okay, I can put another $10 on my credit, another $15 on my credit card, not a big deal. But if you're going from one book to two book, it's a really good deal. So that is like, nice nice to have that price point there. So, um, we'll see how it goes in the future. I really, really didn't get a good sense of much of anything aside from that. Uh, yeah, so and I didn't know what the size of this thing was gonna be ahead of time either. This was something I just kind of, like, randomly decided to do. Actually, my friend Jody had recommended. He said, "You know what? There's a paranormal conference near me. It's, like, something you might do well at." And I'm thinking, "Yeah, I think I would do well at the paranormal conference." This was not the paranormal conference to do well at. Um, it was nearby. It was less than a 2-hour drive, so that was good because it didn't cost me more than 2 gallons of gas to get there and back. Didn't have to pay for, lodging or anything like that. So that worked out well, but in the long run, for the day, what did I make? I think I sold maybe $100 worth of books. maybe. So that was not my best, day ever, but it wasn't my worst either. First time I went out with Jody, we were at this Comic Con in Milwaukee, I think it was called Lucky Con or something like that, and he signed up for it, and he invited me to come along with him because he was doing it, and uh, I was at a low point. I would my brother had just passed away a few months earlier, and he just says, "I don't know if you're up for it, but let's go. Let's hang out," because we hadn't met in person yet. And it was, like, really nice of him to invite me along, and it was just hour and a half from my house, so I said, "Okay, yeah, let's do that." And we got there, and okay. So the reason he signed up for it is that the logo for it had a mascot that had a magic 8 ball for a head. In one of his books is called The 8 Ball Magic of Suzy Q, and so he says, "Oh, well, I have to do this one because it's got an 8 ball link there." So we went there, and it wasn't anything, I think, atypical from what you would see at a comic book convention, except for one thing, and this is Jody's, um, rule of thumb. I think it makes sense. When you don't have to pay to get into something, you're less likely to buy things. If you've got an investment, if you got that sunk cost in there, you're gonna take advantage of that opportunity to get those things that you wouldn't get otherwise. So I think, at this was a free one. This was one, it was, like, in an abandoned store at a mall in Milwaukee, um, and it was not a lot of foot traffic going through there. There wasn't I don't know how well he had advertised it, but, there wasn't a lot of these comic book conventions, they've got, like, guests who come and sign photos. Most of the time, it are people who, like, do voiceovers for anime, interestingly enough. Those people are big. And so those characters, people who do those voices, they probably make a good living on the weekends, signing pictures and stuff at conventions. So that was the situation here, and, it was a fun time to hang out with him, but we didn't sell a lot of books. I think I sold maybe 5 or 6 books, not a lot of books. And at that point, I didn't have anything except for the books and a few stand-up signs and stuff like that, so I didn't have bookmarks or anything like that. I take it back, I did have the bookmarks. The bookmarks I've been using as kind of a premium to get people to sign up for my mailing lists, which does not work. People will not sign up for your mailing list for a bookmark. I thought that was a brilliant idea. Sign up for my mailing list, and I will mail you a free bookmark. It cost me, what, 50 cents for the envelope and the bookmark and the postage, maybe more. Nobody took me up on it. Nobody took me up on it. I sent some out to people who were doing beta reading for Afterlife, but that was about it. So the next premium I'm going to offer, as I've mentioned before, is the audiobook of my short story collection, The Charlatan's Conundrum, and other bedtime stories for insomniacs. And I think a full length audiobook is going to be a better premium for a mailing list. We'll see. People who are on my mailing list right now will get it for free. People who have been buying books from me over the last couple of weeks already have it for free. So I've given away like dozens of copies of that. I don't know how many people have actually downloaded it though. Let me take a look and see. So I'm here to Book Funnel because it's interesting. Most people don't download stuff for free. You've gifted 4 books to readers in the last 30 days. Charlatan's Conundrum ebook had one down. Oh no, that's the gifted ones. Okay, had one download. Okay, so I've only had one download of that. Interesting. So of the dozens I've given away, only one person has actually collected it. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't cost me anything more or less if I send them the link and they don't do it. Um, but I do get their email address. So I will add them to my mailing list and they can take themselves right off if they're I should excuse me. Uh, long day. If they're not interested in being on my mailing list. But I do have that option. The other thing is, I do get, again, people interested in the podcast. Oh, here's the one thing I think that did come from this, and this is the reason why I think overall I had a net positive for this experience at the paranormal conference. When I got there, or actually the other day when I was looking at the map of vendors, I noticed that there was a podcast there in the main room. So when I got there, after I got set up, I grabbed copies of my books, put some bookmarks in there, and I went up to the paranormal podcast and I said, "Hey, you're the podcast, right?" And they said, "Yes." I said, "Hi, I'm a writer. I write this paranormal mystery series. I do a podcast of short fiction, and I wanted you to have these books." Uh, and we had a great conversation. She was telling me what she was doing. She asked me if I guest on podcasts, and I said, "Yes, I do." So hopefully, I will get a spot on their podcast. I'm not sure what kind of reach they have. I have to look them up. In fact, I can do that right now. Let me do that. Trying to I think they were on YouTube. Let me see. Um, YouTube Haunted Happy Hour with Lily. Haunting Hour. Haunting Hour. No, I don't see them on YouTube. There's something called the Haunting Hour, but it's not them. They're the Haunting Happy Hour. And they sell spirit infused coffee as the thing. It seems like every other podcast is selling coffee these days. They sell one that's got some booze flavors to them. So that was kind of interesting. But I do not see them because if you look on YouTube, you can see number of downloads, how many subscribers and stuff like that, but I'm not seeing that here. Um, let me see if I can see them on Spotify. Bring us over here. Spotify. Let's look for them. Haunted. What happened there? Haunted Happy Hour. There it is. Haunted Happy Hour podcast. Do we have any stats here on this one? Don't see anything, but they've been around for a couple of seasons, it looks like. They are on season 2. All right, cool. So I made a contact. Hopefully, I'll get on their podcast as a guest, talk about my books, talk about my podcast, get some exposure, and get some listings going on here. The other thing I should check here is see if I got any boost in my downloads. Castos. To login. Okay, analytics. So no. So normally I would see a spike here in the downloads. This is when I dropped my last episode, and here this is probably still the trailing end of that. So I did not get a big boost. This here last week, this 154, that was the Saturday. Yeah, September 7th. That was the Saturday of the Printers Row Book Fair. I had not dropped a new podcast episode that weekend, and I got over 300 downloads, 350 downloads that weekend from handing out my bookmarks and playlists and stuff like that. So that was a good thing there. So that was pretty nice. So there we go. That's what we're doing with that. Let's take this off here and come back over here and talk to you guys. So that's basically the autopsy for this. I wish I had more to say. I wish I could have talked more about the signage. Yeah, it was an interesting experience in terms of meeting the other vendors, meeting the organizers, going to a paranormal conference, hearing the people talk. It just was, I think, this was just too local, too small for me. I need to find a bigger one. I need to find one that's got bigger guests, bigger names, one that they charge a lot of money to get into. $50 admission one I saw. Um, that might be a good one to try and chase down, but it's going to be within 8 hours too. And if it's a 2-day thing too, I know that's gonna be bigger as well. This was actually, I think they had programming on Friday night as well, but they didn't have the vendor set up on Friday night, just Saturday. I think it was at a different location Friday night. But Rockford's a really nice town, a nice little town. I haven't been up there for a long time. I meant to swing by the airport. Um, there's a there's a scene in my next book, where the guy drives to the Rockford airport. And Rockford has an international airport. It's kind of interesting. It's like, one of the regional airports for Chicago. It's 2 hours away from Chicago, hour and a half from Chicago. But, yeah, it's an international airport out there in North Central Illinois. And, so there's a scene in the book where he drops somebody off at the airport, but his windshield is broken. He gets detained by the cops, and then someone stops by to fix his windshield. That's, because he's involved with this, group who, are doing, uh, this, so the premise of the book is recently lost his job trying to make some money in the gig economy, and he starts driving for Uber. Not very successful at it, but he meets a guy who offers him a deal and says, "Hey, we've got this new thing we're spinning up, and to incentivize people to ride with us, we're gonna pay you $100 for uh, each of 10 rides." Hence the name of the book, The 10th Ride. And, in the prologue, you see a woman doing some sort of rideshare gig, and she gets there and dies horribly. Uh, I'm not giving anything away because it's right at the beginning of the book. No, it's not a spoiler. It's not that I'm spoiling the prologue for you guys. Not a big deal. So I just want to sort of like put at put out what's at stake right at the beginning of the book. So this is another person who we assume was involved in the same shady deal as what this guy gets caught up in, and so that's the jeopardy that his family is facing. So we know that right from the beginning, and so as we see what happens to his family along the course of the book, we go, "This is not gonna be good. Don't do that 10th ride because the 10th ride is the end, not only of the deal, but of you." So, anyway, back to my story. So it's the Rockford Airport. Now like did some Google Earth, shots of the, airport and stuff like that to sort of see what it looked like, and but I don't really have a firsthand knowledge of what it's like. I just kind of did like a generic airport drop-off lane type of scene. So I was hoping to swing by, but I just didn't have time. I didn't have the energy. It was a long day. Got up at like 5 in the morning, drove out there, spent 9 hours there basically, and then a couple hours back. And so it was like, yeah, long day. And if I hadn't, you know, if I wasn't going on just 4 hours of sleep, I probably would have done it. But um, you know me, I'm a night owl. I stay up late, and so it's my own damn fault. I get up there, I go, I s and this is my curse. I I stay up late doing stuff, and then I get up early because I have to go to work or I wanna get something done or I gotta hit the road for a show, and it's, like, constantly tired. Um, so, usually Sundays I can catch up on some sleep, so I will be doing that tomorrow, but, yeah, it's a grind. It's a grind. I look forward to the day when I can, put the day job behind me at least, or maybe the night job, and, get some more sleep at least. And I'd love to be able to do these book selling events, every weekend. Jody Sperling does this, almost every weekend. I think he takes 1 weekend off a month, uh, and he sells hundreds and hundreds of books. I've got a big inventory of books right now, put out a lot of cash for these books. So I need to sell a bunch of them. I've got some events lined up here. There's some events coming up I may try to squeeze into, but I don't really have anything big until November. But after that, I'm going to be looking for more events in December and January and February and so forth. So next year. So but I have to get some writing done too. That's the other thing. I gotta get the 10th ride done. I've got to get Farsight done. I've got to get my second anthology out. There's 3 books that are on the cusp of being done. I can have them all done by the end of the year if I really put my mind to it. And then, of course, as you know, in January, the month of January, I will be live streaming writing my novel Spy You, and we'll see how that goes. That's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to writing that book because that book is very different from anything else I've written so far. It's similar to some of the short stories I've been doing. Some of the short stories I do have a humorous aspect to them. Uh, if you're familiar with my podcast, Bedtime Stories for Insomniacs, bedtimestories.studio. There's one called The Time Cop Paradox, which is which is actually based on characters that I wrote for a pilot years ago. Arnold Rudnick, who was my writing partner in Hollywood for many years and college friend and so forth, he and I came up with this idea called the Tank. The Tank isn't a think tank. And the concept for the sitcom was that there's this billionaire and he's got his own private think tank to help him with his problems. Sometimes they're business related, sometimes they're personal. Um, so he's got this group of super intellectuals, but they're missing something. They're not working to their full potential. And he meets this guy in a bar. Meets this guy in a bar who's got just common sense, homespun, knowledge kind of stuff. He's like kind of like one of those guys who's just got kind of like that street knowledge, right? His name is Jack, and so he says, "I want you to come work for me. I want you to come work in my think tank." Now, he doesn't have a super high IQ like these other people do. It's like, it's high. He's a smart guy, but it's not like he's a super genius like the rest of them. There's let's see, we've got Worm, who is short for bookworm. He is just the trivia master. He actually was on Jeopardy years and years ago when they had like a 5 show limit. And so he is really holds a grudge because he feels like he could have beaten Ken Jennings' record if he had had that opportunity. So that's a constant thing that's always grinding his gears. Uh, there's the woman, what's her name? I forget, but she's just a really bright woman, multiple PhDs, very sexy, very aware of herself. And so she's someone who is always kind of like everyone doesn't quite know what she wants. She's just kind of always on the edge of being a super genius and seductress. There's another guy who is a sports guy. He played sports, but he's a really smart sports guy, and he does that. And who else do we have? I think there was another character, and so the story starts off with where they come into the office and one guy's dead. And there's actually a case of this where there's was it a Wells Fargo bank or something like that recently, where this woman had died at her desk and nobody knew it all weekend long. She was sitting at her desk dead. People came in and go, "Oh, what are you doing here so early?" And they realized she was dead. Anyway, so they got this group of characters and Jack, and so I wrote a story based off of part of a cold opening that I had written for the show, in which the woman, and I'm blank on her name now. God, what is it? All right, never mind. The genius woman, and Worm and Jack are in the think tank. They're the only ones there. And Worm is reading as usual. He's just got a stack of books. He's constantly going through, absorbing more trivia. And she comes in. She's got a box of electronics, and she starts putting them together. He goes, "What are you building?" Time machine. You can't do time. You can't do make a time machine. Time travel is impossible." And she goes, "Oh, okay. How many PhDs in physics do you have?" And he's like going, "No, no." And so then Jack is jumping in the middle there because he knows that Worm is a big John Claude Van Damme fan, and the, I wonder if I should play the episode. You guys want to hear an episode? Let's play this one. I'm gonna go ahead and do something I haven't done yet. I'm gonna go ahead and play an episode for you guys in case you haven't heard my podcast, and we'll find out the name of the woman. So that'll be good. Let's see here. I think this is under science fiction. Where are you? Time Walker, Time Traveler's Dilemma. Where is it? Do I not have it here? Uh-oh. 321, 2019. Da, da, da. Picture. There it is. The time comp paradox. Why did I have it under science fiction? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and skip the opening theme here. So this is one I need to remaster because it doesn't have my standard introduction with the intro theme and stuff like that. So Susie, that's her name. Alright, so and then I get the closing credits, so, um, yeah, that's one of my favorites, I love I love it I love it when you write something and it can make you laugh, even though you know you wrote it, you know what's coming. Same thing with stuff that makes you cry, same thing that makes you scared. Just if you can write something that provokes the emotion in you that you intended to provoke in others, I think you're on the money. I think you're over the target in that case, and I know you've all done that. So this is one of those stories. So this is the tone of Spy You. This is just fun, quirky characters, not taking things seriously, riffing on cliches and stuff like that. Except I'm going to be doing the spy genre. I'm going to be doing a very Austin. I'm going to be doing an Austin Powers of Austin Powers. So it's going to be one of those where it's just spoofy stuff. And I don't know what genre it fits in quite right. I guess it's humor. I don't know. I have to do some research on that. But, and I think I need a more current comp. Right now I'm describing it as Austin Powers meets Revenge of the Nerds, but there's gotta be a better, uh, college movie. I could have done Animal House, but that's not that's way out of, league. Revenge of the Nerds, I don't know, does anyone remember that movie? That was a long time ago. There were, I think, 3 of them. I think we did 3 Revenge of the Nerds movies. Anthony Edwards, um, and what's his name too? The Curtis, oh, I forget his name. But, yeah, it was fun times there. So if anybody has any suggestions when I'm running that book, I'll be open for comps on that one. Austin Powers too, I guess Austin Powers is current enough. I think most people know Austin Powers, right? I wish he would do another Austin Powers movie so that, it would make my life easier. It would be great. Alright. So, that is my, story. So I've this is surreal. I'm, like, playing stories from my podcast on my live stream, which will then be a podcast. You can't make this stuff up. So that's one of the stories I got that. The other ones I think that are kind of like in that genre are Tricked, which is my Christmas Carol Halloween crossover. Um, do I have humor as a topic here? Let's come back to stories. I should be sharing this with you guys. You can see what I'm doing here. Yeah, funny. Here's funny. So, Time Traveler's Dilemma. Welcome to QB's Polymorphic Puppy Paradigm. This is one I think I'm gonna do more stories with this character. His name is Max Fathom. He is a guy who tweaks the simulation hacker. So he is absolutely convinced that we are living in a simulation, be it made by humans, aliens, or another simulation. Who doesn't matter. He has found little hacks in there, and one of them is the polymorphic puppy paradigm. Where's My Pizza? That's another good funny one if you guys are looking for humor. Ruby is funny, but it's also kind of a little dark too. I Vacuum is funny. Perfect Wishes falls in the mouse trap. Yeah, Interview with the Alien. Here's the Time Traveler's Dilemma again. Virtual Reality for Dummies, Reset, Tiny Little Man, and of course Time Cop. So these are the ones with humor in them. Um, but yeah, Spy You is going to take me back to my old sitcom days. It'll be fun. I mean, when I started writing in Hollywood, I was writing exclusively sitcoms. Um, I mean, I had done some screenplays, uh, but I got a job on a sitcom. It was a show called A Different World. It was a spinoff of a, sh- a show called The Name of a Comedian Who Shall Not Be Named show, um, which was on Thursday nights on NBC, if anybody remembers what I'm talking about. Anyway, it was a spinoff of his show. Uh, got to work on it. I worked on it for 4 years. Started off as a production assistant, got to be a writer's assistant, made some really great friends there. That led to me working on Fresh Prince of Bel Air. That led to me doing a script for Fresh Prince of Bel Air, which then led to everything else. Uh, so that kind of kicked things off. But yeah, but for a long time there, Arnold and I were writing what they call spec scripts. So a spec script is you write a an episode for an existing TV show that doesn't exist. The episode doesn't exist. You just write what you would like to see as an episode on that show. And some people had big career launching multi-pilot deals off of spec scripts because they're so funny. Um, there's other things involved, I'm sure, but that's the legend, right? That's just it's just so funny. It's like it's nothing to do with who you are or who your uncle is and stuff like that. So we were writing spec scripts like crazy. We were watching every single sitcom that was on TV at the time, and it was a lot easier to do back then because this was before the big explosion of all the cable and CW and Fox and all that kind of stuff. There was Fox, but so there were like four major networks to watch, and there was probably a couple dozen sitcoms running concurrently, and we were taping them all, watching them all, writing specs for everything we could think of, coming up with ideas, and we would just do it. We would write a spec script for it. We would come up with the ideas. We would pitch ideas to ourselves, pick one we wanted to write it for that show, and then we would get our actor friends together and we would do our own table read. So table read is when you get the actors together and they sit at a table. The director will read the action and the actors will read their lines, and you sort of like get a preview of what the show is going to be. So we would do that with our spec scripts. We would get our actor friends together to have them read it out loud for us so that we could sort of get an idea of like, are we hitting the mark here? Is this something that is really as funny as we think it is? And then sometimes we get ideas, some notes from them, and we would punch it up, and then we would take it out. And the only time that we actually got anything from a spec script was we got into the Warner Brothers Writers Workshop, which was for sitcoms, which was a big deal. I mean, only about a dozen people got into that every year, and we were one of the teams that they allowed in there. It didn't lead to a job. Um, I've got grudges about that. We were, I think, one of the top 3 writing entities in that workshop, yet we did not get a job out of that. There's reasons for that that are, whatever they are. They are what they are. I can't hold it against anybody, but it was not, I'll tell you this, was not based on talent who got the jobs. Just wasn't. I'm saying that objectively. Everybody in there was like saying, you guys will do great. You guys are gonna do great things." And then, "Okay, but why don't we do great things on your show? Why can't we do that?" So it didn't happen. That's okay. We went on and we did some other shows and we got to be head writers on the Addams Family, and could have been bigger. It wasn't. It was what it was. My goal going out there was always getting at least one thing produced, and I had, I think, over 50 produced scripts, so I'm not complaining at all. It was a good life. It was a great time. I'm very proud of the work I did, and so, uh, that's what that is. So that was one time when a spec script got us, an opportunity. The other time was getting, uh, our first, assignment on the new Addams Family. So our spec script, I forget what show it was at the time. I wonder which one it was. God, I can't remember if that's I don't know if he remembers what script it was that got us this job. But what would happen is like we had an agent at the time, and agents would get calls say, "Hey, we need writers for this show," and they would like stack up all their entry level sitcom writers, send over the scripts, and so the producers would get a stack of scripts and they would go through them, and then usually they read like the first 5 or 10 pages. They go pass. They got to ours and they said, "Okay, we want to hire these guys." So they called us in. We pitched a story that we wanted to do for them, which, as I think I've explained before, on the new Adams Family, we were basically rewriting old scripts at that point. Uh, so we pitched them that we did it, and they loved it. And they said, "Okay, do another one." And then eventually they said, "Okay, you know what? Our head writer is leaving. You guys want the job?" And we said, "Yeah." So we did that, and interestingly, I was struck me as odd because the previous writer, someone we actually had known previously, She never went up to the set, and the producers asked us, like, "Are you guys, you guys are allowed. We'd love to have you come up to the set for the table reads and stuff." I said, we said, "Yeah, yeah, we want to be there." And so we would fly from Los Angeles to Vancouver, like leave at like 5:30 in the morning, get to the airport, take an Alaskan airline flight up to Vancouver, get there, spend the day on the stage. They offered to keep us overnight, but it was like, it doesn't really feel like we needed to. There was a late flight we could catch to get home and get home like in a limo to and from the airport. So really nice. I mean, when you the deal with the Writers Guild at the time was that if they flew you somewhere, they had to fly you at the best available class. So we had business class tickets on those things, and Alaska Airlines was a partner with American. I like got like tons of American airline miles because you got double, triple miles flying business class. So that was sweet. That was a good deal. But we went up there for every episode that we were working on. And we said, yeah. So we were flying up there 1 or 2 times a week to do the table reads, meet with the cast, meet with the producer, find out what's going on, watch some shooting stuff, and do some rewrites up there too. Sometimes get things done. And so it was a really great opportunity. But that was something that came from a spec script. Was my point. So 2 opportunities actually came from spec scripts. Everything else came from context. It came from who we know. We got the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air because I was working on the show. We got Star Trek Voyager because Arnold worked in the same building as the Star Trek producers. He knew them. He made friends with them. We went in, he got us an opportunity to go in and pitch stories to them. They ripped off a couple of stories. I'm not going to say Brandon Braga is necessarily intentionally stole our ideas, but we finally got a story that we didn't pitch to Brandon Braga that did go through. And then we got a cop show from a friend of mine. We got another sitcom from contacts that we had. And then after Adam's Family, then we got onto another show at the Fox Family Channel, and we had pilot deals going there. And then they got bought out by ABC, and that was just like, okay, that's nice ride while it happened. It's just sometimes the rug gets pulled out from underneath you, and you got to roll with it. You got to roll with it. It as I tell my son all the time, it's like it doesn't do anybody any good to dwell on things that didn't go the way you wanted to in the past. You can't change it. Time machines, notwithstanding. There's no point in dwelling on it. Just move forward, make new opportunities, and that's what I'm doing with the novels. That's what I'm doing with the podcast. That's what I'm doing with this live stream. That's what I'm doing with all the things that I'm doing right now. Is I am moving forward. I'm like building something new here, building a new career for myself. So this is I like to sort of describe my life in chapters. First chapter was my education, all the time from birth through college. Then my runaway to join the circus phase, which was going to Hollywood. Then my family phase, which was when I came back home, married, had a kid. And now I'm in my famous novelist phase. I'm putting the famous in there just as sort of like a little incentive, a little positive thinking, power of positive thinking thing going on there. All right. So that's what happened to me today. Thank you for listening to that episode of the podcast that put me in. I think whenever I listen to my story sometimes because one, I got to re-record that one. That's one I got to re-record. If you noticed in that one, I spoke really fast. I think the voices are good. There's more opportunities for sound effects and music in there, but I just spoke way too fast. Came in at like 16 minutes or something. It should be 20 to 22 minutes long. So that's something that early on I had a problem with. I was This was episode 13, so way, way back, first year I started. I was speaking way too fast. And if you listen to audiobooks are told at a specific pace. It's almost as if the narrator has a metronome in front of him and speaks at a very specific pace. Now, when I listen to an audiobook, I usually go to 1.2 times. Some people go 2 times, but I feel like you're missing things there. I like hearing the nuances and stuff like that, and God, I'm listing another damn Scott Brick book. Ugh, God, I hate that guy. He is just, ugh. He's like one of the most prolific audiobook readers if you come across him. He's okay, but he's just not that good. John Lee, who does, Peter Hamilton books, oh my god, he's fantastic. British guy, and he just, he he's able he does a wide range of voices. He's you can tell he's a middle-aged English guy, but he does a great American accent, he does a great all sorts of other accents, and he's just got that commanding narrator voice, and he speaks perfectly, and it's just got this great presence, and I love listening to his books, his versions of stuff. So when you put the two together, Scott Brick and Peter and John Lee, it's like, why does Scott Brick have a job? Some people like him. I think his voices don't have a big range. That's my big criticism. And early on in his earlier books, he just sounded really sad all the time. A friend of mine actually knows him. They used to do Shakespeare in the Park together, and funny stories there. But we're running out of time here. We're a little bit over time. I usually try to keep this at an hour, but I always go over. I always go over unless I'm really tired, in which case I'll go to bed early. But tonight I'm going over a little bit, just a little bit. Um, all right. So tomorrow I still have to get Jody's story out. I got all the elements together. I will do that first thing in the morning, get that up, posted, and then I'll post the interview. And then I'm going to hopefully before the end of the day get the voice recorded for Dreams of Her so that I can do the sound effects on Monday and then post that story on Tuesday. So get that story going. And then, of course, I've got the Leap ready to go too. That one I will do for the following week. And then I've got In the Light of the Moon. I think that one's going to be ready to go by then too. I need to write that one. We broke that one the other day. So I've got those three stories. So Jody's story and then three of my stories lined up for the next 4 weeks here. I'm done with the novel. I don't have a new novel to put up yet. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go back and remaster a bunch of these. Um, because there's some that I put together for the podcast, not for the podcast, for the audiobook of the Charlatan's Conundrum that I do need to remaster. So I will be remastering those. So I'll try to get two up a week, one remastered one and one new one. I know I'm going to miss that. I know there are going to be times when I don't have enough time to get that done, but hopefully at least one because I want to keep my momentum going on the podcast. As you can see in my stats, I am getting 4,000 downloads over 90 days. Previously, that was at 3,000. So I bumped that up quite a bit. You can see, especially in the last month and a half, a lot more listens, a lot more people here. So I want to capitalize. I want to keep the momentum going. New people listening, that means need to get new episodes because if you're not continuously moving, you're losing listeners. So that is my goal here. Hopefully by the end of the year, I'll get this up to 5,000, maybe 6. We'll see. We'll see. But at least 5,000. That's my goal to get 5,000 listens over a 90-day period. And then gradually that'll be 10,000 and 50,000 and 100,000 and a million. Who knows? We'll see. But yeah, at the end of 3 years, if I'm getting 5,000 downloads over 30 days, that means I'll be on the chartables probably close to the top 100 on Chartable, not on Apple, but on Chartable, which is kind of like a subset of all the podcasts. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. I don't know. I do know that I am doing well for a beginning podcast, especially in this arena. Um, Nominated again for the podcast awards. We'll see what happens. That's coming up at the end of this month. I'll let you know how that goes. I'll keep you guys posted. And then there's the Audioverse Award. Hey, well, sign up for the Audioverse Awards tomorrow too. We'll do that. All right. Good night, everybody. I will see you tomorrow.